Hello, everyone. I hope you're enjoying your breakfast this morning. Continue to eat, feel free. I wanted to start by just introducing some of the people responsible for this event and this program every year, and that's the South Dakota Hall of Fame Board of Directors. So as I announce you, please stand to be recognized for all of the work you put into this event and this organization every year. First, here are the officers of our board. John Porter of Sioux Falls serves as the chair. John was inducted into the South Dakota Hall of Fame in 2018 in the professional field. John's field was healthcare, as he served as the CEO of Avera Health for several years. Also, Mike Cartney of Watertown serves as vice chair and chair of the programming and nominating committees. Mike is also an inductee of South Dakota Hall of Fame. He was inducted in 2020 in the field of education. Marcy Burdick of Rapid City serves as past chair, and she is on the nominating committee. Janon Burbovic of Sioux Falls serves as secretary and chair of the Fund Development Committee. And Dave Roseboom of Sioux Falls serves as treasurer and chair of the Finance Committee. Now, other board of directors include Kathy Clark of Sioux Falls, Steve Flannery of Rapid City, Brad Hopt of Rapid City, Randy Hodek of Highmore, Kitty Kinsman of Rapid City. Kitty is a 2020 inductee in the field of politics. Chantel Krebs of Pierre. Chantel is a 2022 inductee in the field of politics. Michelle LaValle of Sioux Falls, you're going to hear from her in just a moment. And then Jerry Lickness of Watertown, and John McGrath of Sioux Falls, Erica Peterson of Chamberlain, and Ann Thompson of Rapid City. Let's give them all a round of applause for their service. Thank you all. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, this is the 50th anniversary year for South Dakota Hall of Fame. Congratulations to all of our inductees. We're gonna hear from them in just a moment. But as we begin today, I want to welcome up our special guest this morning to speak with us. Larry Roden is South Dakota's 39th Lieutenant Governor. He was elected alongside Governor Noem in 2018 and re-elected in 2022. Larry is a lifelong West River rancher, a dedicated husband, and a father. Lieutenant Governor Roden is a proven leader with a record of service for South Dakota. He serves as Governor Noem's agriculture ambassador, and growing up in church, Larry understood true service at a young age. After graduating high school, he joined the South Dakota National Guard, serving 6 years and carrying on a family legacy of military service that began in the Revolutionary War. And while his children were young, he served as a church trustee, earned a seat on the school board, and led the board of directors for the area Senex. In 2000, Larry was elected to the state legislature. During his time as a citizen legislator, his peers repeatedly selected him to serve in leadership, and it was evident that he had an aptitude for getting things done. Larry has served as the House Majority Leader and has chaired both the Senate and House State Affairs Committees. Larry worked with the Governor Noem to reform South Dakota's tax code and led efforts to repeal the trucker's tax and shape legislation to defend the Second Amendment rights of South Dakotans. His work has earned him the American Conservative Union's highest ranking in 2017. Larry served as the interim secretary of the South Dakota Department of Agriculture from May of 2020 to September 2020. He also served as the past president of State Ag and Rural Leaders. Our Lieutenant Governor still does custom welding and operates the ranch where he was born and raised. He and his wife, Sandy, have 4 sons, Jesse, Cody, Reggie, and Tristan, and then daughters-in-law, Sarah, Liz, Jennifer, and Kaylin, and 6 grandchildren. Please help me give a warm welcome to Lieutenant Governor Larry Roden as he comes to the stage.
Well, thank you for the introduction, and somebody set a timer. I'll try to make my speech shorter than my bio and my introduction. Appreciate that. Well, good morning to all of you, and thanks for inviting me to this. It's always a privilege to come, especially this year, to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the South Dakota Hall of Fame. We're here to celebrate the achievements and contributions of our inductees. And I want to start by commending Lori and her staff and the board of directors. Thank you for the continued work that you do to tell the stories of these exceptional South Dakotans. Thanks to you, those stories will not go untold and are narrated for everyone to hear. And to the class of the 10 inductees, congratulations. You will soon join over 800 South Dakotans who gave more than they received. Each of you has been selected for your outstanding contributions in various fields, from arts and entertainment, professional, general, agriculture, education, and business. Your life's work has helped shape South Dakota into the state that it is today. You have championed a culture of excellence in everything you've done. All of the inductees have done great things, and I know that they will continue to serve South Dakota for years to come. Governor Noem and I work every day to make South Dakota a place where opportunities are endless and our values never change. The 10 of you and the 800 who came before you have done the same. We all want to make South Dakota a place where folks can live and work and raise a family and even retire. We've worked to ensure that South Dakota is a better place for our kids and our grandkids, because that's what leaders do. And our state is known for its monumental leaders. We have 4 of them carved into a mountainside in the Black Hills. They led our country through some of its darkest days and through some of its brightest moments. And while we might not be a Washington or a Jefferson or a Roosevelt or Lincoln, but together we'll continue to champion the culture of excellence for the past, present, and future of all South Dakotans. And I wanted to end on a personal note, just from my experience. I think this year, I was thinking about it coming over here, I think this year marks 30 years of public service for me, or public elected office. And during that time, it's given me the opportunity to meet a lot of great South Dakotans. And I've come to this event a number of times, and almost every time I meet a ton of people that I've known, some of them close friends, and this year's no exception. I had the privilege when I heard that Hugh Ingalls was being one of the inductees this year. I was even more excited because he's a neighbor, about 25 miles away, but a pretty close neighbor. And so the inductees that I've known that were close friends, it's given me a sampling of how much it means to be an inductee into this Hall of Fame, because they are class acts. And Hugh Ingalls is no exception. And I've had a ton of personal experience with him, seen what a mentor he's been to people like myself in my young age, looking up to Hugh and his Christian witness and his family that are grown and raised Christian families, and people that give back more than they take. And so for that, on behalf of Governor Noem and myself, congratulations on your induction. Thank you all for sharing your time and your talent and your treasures with all of South Dakota. May God bless you. May God continue to bless the great state of South Dakota. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larry, for that and for joining us today and being our guest for this event for many years. Now we want to start a panel dialogue, but before we do that, we want to thank our exclusive sponsor of this morning's brunch and this event today, First Premier Bank and Bank Card. Thank you so much for making this event possible. Now, from this point on, our MC and panel facilitator will be Board Director Michelle LaValle. If you have been to Rotary in Sioux Falls on a Monday, you've heard Michelle do exactly this. She has been a South Dakota Hall of Fame Board Director for the past 7 years and has served as a past board chair. She currently serves as the President and Chief Executive Officer for Children's Home Society of South Dakota for 5 years now. Each year, Michelle has moderated a panel of South Dakota Hall of Fame new inductees at the downtown Sioux Falls Rotary, which is currently in the top 20 in terms of membership in the world. Many of our Rotarians are also in the Hall of Fame, and it is one of the more popular programs of the year. This is the second year that we decided to try the same format here at our South Dakota Hall of Fame honor ceremony event. It was a major hit for our audience last year, who really enjoyed it. So let's do it again. Give Michelle a round of applause as she comes up to the stage to start.
Thank you so much, Bridget. And now at this time, we'd like to invite all the class of 2024 to come right up here on the stage, and we are going to start a panel discussion. So let's just take a moment to get everybody situated right up here, and we've got mics coming for you too. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's congratulate the new inductees of the South Dakota Hall of Fame 2024. You make us proud to be South Dakotans, that's for sure. I want to thank you all so much for giving us the opportunity to learn more about your lives than what we can learn from your bios. So I've taken the liberty of focusing one question, a unique question for each one of you. And because we have to do this in an hour, you got about 3 or 4 minutes to answer, but don't worry. No music will gradually escalate and drown you out, so you just keep on talking. But first, to get you talking, we're going to do a little bit of a speed round. So we want to know your name, where you were born, and where you live now. I think that always tells us something, don't you? So how about if we start right down here, Jim?
Oh, you want my name? My name is Jim Anteman. I was born in Sioux Falls, and I live in Sioux Falls.
Good one.
Dean Sorensen. I was born in Rapid City, but my family lived in Timber Lake at that time. Maybe we were Trail City before Timber Lake, so it was Trail City, and I now live in Sioux Falls.
Perfect.
Hi, I'm Keith Thompson. I'm here for Jeff Hazard, so a little different way to answer the question, but Jeff was born in Sioux Falls and lived most of his life in Sioux Falls.
I was born in Matewan, West Virginia, and I lived there the first week of my life because my mother had gone to visit my father, who was working there at the time, and the baby came. I am now a South Dakotan. I just purchased a house in Brookings.
Great.
I was born in Sisseton at the IHS, and I live south of there at about 6 miles from Sisseton at the Agency Village.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. You can keep that mic. Or Hugh, would you mind starting? Just your name and where you were born and where you live now. It's on.
My name is Hugh Ingalls. I was born in Faith, South Dakota. Lived near there all my life. Happen to be living right now at a assisted living in Sturgis, where I graduated from high school, 1947.
Thanks, Hugh. Jan, you can pass the mic if you would, Hugh.
Okay. I was born in Huron, and I still live in Huron. Have traveled, and I never found any place any better where I don't want to be.
Woohoo! Go Huron!
I would like to have Michelle, if she doesn't mind, do a little cheer for Huron because she does such a good job.
You don't have to ask me twice. HURONTIGERS. Huron Tigers.
Yay!
I can't believe you did that, Jan.
Doesn't get any better than that.
Can't believe you did that, Jan.
Good morning. Arlene Gay Kingman, and I was born at Cheyenne Agency, South Dakota, which is now 90 feet under the Owyhee Dam. And then the agency people and the country there moved to Eagle Butte. So that's kind of like a second home. I live in Rapid City, South Dakota, and but still, the reservation is still home. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Judith Meyer Henry, and I was actually the first. I have I had 3 older siblings, and I was the only one that was born in a hospital in Burke, South Dakota. Now I live in Sioux Falls.
I'm Greg Sands. My brother and I were both born in Fargo, North Dakota, and kind of grew up in Aberdeen, and then now I live in Sioux Falls.
Perfect, thank you. It's always good to hear a little bit first, right? Where they came from and where they are now. And Greg, I'm gonna let you keep that microphone and we're gonna start with you. So first of all, thank you so much for all you do for so many nonprofits in South Dakota, including my organization, Children's Home Society. Many in this room know the story, or may know the story if you haven't had a chance to read the bio, of how you rose from being in prison as a teenager for dealing drugs to becoming a successful business owner and amazing philanthropist. Greg, can you describe how you overcame what seemed like insurmountable obstacles? What did you find deep within yourself to forge ahead?
Well, when I came to Sioux Falls to the halfway house from the Federal Bureau of Prisons in Dallas-Fort Worth, I met the judge and she just hooked me up. I got into the halfway house and I had a lot of challenges in front of me. And I had all these hurdles, and if I looked at all the hurdles at one time, it was just too much to overcome because there was 100 hurdles. And I started focusing on one hurdle at a time. And then eventually there was no more hurdles. It took a while. But a quick story about my taxes. When I went to prison, I had a tax lien for $4,000 because my life was dysfunctional and I didn't pay taxes. I am paying them now, I assure you. And so I owed them $4,000 when I went, I owed them 10 when I got out. I went into the IRS office, made an offer and compromise. I had 5 meetings with the guy who sounded like God. And when it finally got all done, he said, we'll accept your offer of $4,000. I said, who accepts that? He said, they take it upstairs and they'll decide. And I said, well, who actually makes the decision? And he said, that would be me, I'm the head of the IRS. And I saw at that time that when I was doing the right things in my life, that God opened doors for me and gave me confidence. I just gotta overcome one hurdle. That's all you gotta do is just the one hurdle. There's 100 of them, but then there's 99 and then 98, and that's what worked for me. Thank you, Michelle.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, you can keep it. That's great. Dean Sorensen, could we call on you next? Dean, you've had quite a career in the broadcast industry. In reading your nomination, I was struck by how many people who nominated you talked about the importance of your mentorship to them. In some cases, you ended up selling your business to people you mentored. Why do you believe mentorship is important? And did a mentor play a role in your life? Can you tell us that story?
I'll start with the last part of it because that's the easy part. Did a mentor have a part in my life? And yes, over and over, and still do today. We use that word mentoring in a lot of broad forms because it is a very broad form. It sometimes is a word of encouragement. It's sometimes somebody who puts their arm around you and helps you walk through one of those hurdles in life or in business. And it could be just something you read that somebody did that you may have never met them, but they served to be a mentor of something that appeared in a magazine or a book or on a screen somewhere. Since this whole thing's taken place since last spring when we found out who the inductees were, and I was one of them, I thought about this mentoring a lot. I don't know where it all started, except I think we all probably have a very basic understanding that we're put on this earth to leave something, not just take. And mentoring is leaving to the next, paying it forward, paying it back, whichever way you want to look at it. And yes, there are people who have mentored me. Bill Fisher was in the room earlier. Bill was a banker in Pierre, South Dakota, and I knew if I went to his office at 6:30 in the morning, I got his undivided attention. And he was already at his desk, and we would have a one-on-one. And I would leave his office with a yellow legal pad of about 6 or 8 things I needed to do in the next 6 months. And it wasn't all I had to do with banking or money. It just, I was leading my life and leading my organization. And of course, I've had many folks in my field of interest in broadcasting that have been my mentors, continue to be so. But I think it's just a basic idea that there's a human nature that says to us, we should pass this forward. This is not just for us. We're here just a short period of time, and it's a lot of fun to watch people. One of our mentees is with us, Carolyn Becker, and she has been with us since sophomore in high school. And it's fun to see them move to their pinnacles they're now achieving.
Thank you so much, Dean. What a great story of mentorship. When you're on the board of the South Dakota Hall of Fame, you read about 60 or 70 nominations each year, and one thing that is always there is stories of mentorship, and that's why that's so important to us on developing this culture of excellence. I'd like to call on now Gay Kingman, if you wouldn't mind passing the mic down, just 2. And Gay, you might be best known for your 24-year career as the executive director of the Great Plains Tribal Chairmen's Association, but you've also been an educator, a civic activist, and worked on national legislation impacting Native issues. What are the accomplishments of which you're most proud, and how do you hope your work will impact future generations? Gay.
It's difficult to pick one accomplishment. As an educator, it's lifelong education. And right now, you're here meeting with one another and educating each other too. And so education itself, I believe, is an accomplishment. And went and got my formal education, Northern State, Arizona State University, and Georgetown University, George Washington University, and one of the accomplishments that I want to talk about was a real difficult one that I was able to get through, but it helped a lot. I was always told, I grew up knowing that when your tribe asks you, you can't refuse when tribal leadership. So I was president of the college at Eagle Butte, and this was several years ago. And we have a national organization called NCAI. It's National Congress of American Indians. And it's an organization in Washington, D.C. that works on legislation or with policy with the government for all of the tribes in the United States. And it was floundering. There was economic problems, credit problems, and like that. And so we were at the an NCI meeting, and the board asked me, they said, we want you to resign your job. We want you to go to Washington, D.C. and take over that organization and put it right. And you're to leave on the next flight out.
Wow.
And it happened that the vice president was there from the college, and it was all set up. She would take over the reins of the college, and I would be available for any information by phone. And so I did. I took the next flight out to Washington, D.C., and the Quinault tribe in Washington State sent me their finance director, and a tribe in Wisconsin sent me their finance director, and I called an auditor immediately. So we started working on the books, putting things back in place, had to meet with IRS because they hadn't paid unemployment tax, and set up that payments back. And with the help of the auditor and the finance people, we were able to get good internal controls back on the organization, and we set it in a proper footing. So it was, when I left there, it was in excellent shape. And it's kind of been a story of my life, either to start something and set it up, or to, like in this case, to correct things and management. And so I think that was an accomplishment, because the National Congress of American Indians helps all the tribes in the United States. Any legislation that goes through Congress, they're there working on it, and they're testifying or furnishing statistics. And so it's a real good organization, valuable. And to this day, it's a very accomplished organization, and with good management, good leadership. And so I like to think of that as one accomplishment that really helped our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Gay. What an accomplishment. Thank you. Jim Entenmann. We got to switch now to talking about Harleys. Who thinks of Jim Entenmann as that Harley guy? I know I always do. But then he also has a whole other part of his life that's about philanthropy. I loved reading about the top 10 Harley dealers in the nation that you received time again, and so many other awards, another reason to be proud of a South Dakotan. But I also took special note of the significant work in philanthropy, particularly with Hot Harley Nights, a benefit that lasted over 25 years.
Yeah.
I want to know how you came up with this and why behind it. How many people have been impacted?
Well, thank you. At the time, a friend of mine, I lost a brother in about 1989. He had 3 liver transplants and passed away after 3, and he was 19 years old at the time. A few years later, a friend of mine, Mr. Tom Walsh, said, "Jim, boy, do I have a deal for you." And he introduced me to this little lady that I love dearly, Mary Oldinger, okay? And she says, "How can we involve you?" And we started out doing a little raffle, but then after that, I attended a conference down in LA, and I went into a dealership down there, and they did an event at their dealership where they brought in motorcycles every twice a summer, I think it was. So we came back home and we went down to the brew pub, and we sat down and we said, "Hey, we got a concept of doing an event, and we're going to call it Hot Harley Nights, right?" And of course, all motorcycles were welcome, by the way. It's just that I have a preference for Harleys. Anyway, we started Hot Harley Nights, and Mary Oldinger, we talked to her and we got involved. The first year we had 200 people, and we raised $2,000, and we thought, boy, what a deal this is, right? So at its peak, we had over 40,000 people from 3 foreign countries that attended the event. And in the 25 years we put it on, we've raised over $3.5 million for Make-A-Wish of South Dakota. Wow. Thanks. The organization was really dear to us because it was about families, right? And in Harley world, we're a big family. So it was all about families, it was about the child, but it was also seeing the smiles in the face of all the families. And I've been very, very fortunate in the years that I've been in business that I've been able to give back in a number of different ways with my partner Lonnie and I. We've always come up with some different ideas, we do some different things, and we've got some great friends out there in the community, and that's kind of how we got started. It was all about my brother at the time.
Oh, thank you so much. And Mary Ollinger's here too. Mary, stand up. We can't usually tell when she's standing, but Mary's also a South Dakota Hall of Famer, former leader of Make-A-Wish.
She even enjoyed riding that motorcycle too, by the way.
She couldn't touch the ground. Let's Let's turn now from Arlie's to Jan Manolis, my friend from Huron. Jan, I'm so proud to see a fellow Huronite inducted into the South Dakota Hall of Fame with names like Marilyn Hoyt, Paul Christian, and Earl Norby, all people that we know. And for those of you who don't know, the Manolis Family Grocery is the oldest continuously operating grocery store in South Dakota. Is Todd here? Or he's running the store? Where? Yeah? Yeah, he's running the store. It's a Huron institution. Jan, you know about second careering, having had a successful career prior to a true calling at the age of 50, when a family member experienced domestic violence and there was no resources available in our small prairie town. How were you able to pivot to devote yourself to domestic violence prevention and intervention? And were there times you wanted to give up that tough challenge?
I told her I wanted to give it up yesterday. But in all seriousness, I was on the YWCA board of directors at the time. And we were doing a spring luncheon. You know how the YWCA does fundraisers. We do spring luncheons. We do all of that. Well, we needed a speaker. And we were having a tough time finding one that we wanted and one that would come. Somebody suggested the name of Mary Helen Hoppanen. You people in Brookings might know Mary Helen. I do not know her current status. I don't know if she's still there. But anyway, she volunteered to come. And she talked about domestic abuse. Now, I had a board of directors that said there wasn't any domestic abuse in South Dakota, especially not in Huron. Good grief. You know, so when she came and she talked to us like that, and she got up and afterwards, and I said to her, you know, if my husband ever hit me, he better make it count because he wouldn't get a second chance. And she said, Mrs. Manolis, you're an ignorant woman. That's how I got started. Nobody's gonna call me an ignorant woman anymore. So that's how I got started, looked into it, and here I am 40 years later.
Oh, wow. Jan is the really not the grandmother, but the godmother of all domestic violence prevention in the state of South Dakota. In Sioux Falls, we run a very large shelter, and she is the one that got it started. So thank you so much, Jan, for everything that you've done.
You're welcome.
Let's turn now to Brian Akipa. Brian, can you pass the message? Thank you so much. Brian, what an impressive career you have had, studying under the famous Oscar Howe. How many people can say that? And you've had recognition for the Grammys, to being an NEA National Fellow, and many Native American music awards. How did you come to know Oscar Howe, and what was it like studying under him?
Okay, Oscar Howe. My aunt had a Dakota language program at USD, and when I think it was Ella Deloria Dakota language program, she introduced me to Oscar Howe, and maybe when I was in high school, I think I was about maybe 11th grade. And so I met him, and when I was in high school, I went there and also met him, and he was always at his desk, always had his painting easel and workstation, and so I met him that way. And I had tape recordings of my grandmother telling stories, all in Dakota language, and he was a first language, Dakota language speaker. And he could, so I brought those to class, and he had a little recorder there, and he would listen to those old oral history stories. And so we kind of got to know each other that way. And he taught me an ancient style or philosophy of painting called tohokmu. And it's using mind imagery. And so if you ever see any Oscar Howe's work, he could see that in his mind and project it onto his working area. And so this is goes back to the origin, the very first use of Dakota use of design and color. So it's ancient philosophy of art. And so that's what I got a chance to learn, and probably could never learn something like that from anyone else. And mind imagery, everyone can do it. When you're reading a book, you could see like a little movie in your mind, and or even just daydreaming, or even a dream. You could remember seeing something, and so that's what it is. It is, but Oscar Howe kind of fine-tuned that and took it to another level.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. What a wonderful story. Thank you. I think we need to talk about cattle genetics. What do you think, sir, at the end of our row? Hugh Ingalls, I so enjoyed reading about your life and could identify with your experiences growing up on a cattle ranch when they were trying to breed buffalo and cows. You remember those days, Hugh, the famous beefalo? No. It was before his time. You've had quite the innovation partnership with SDSU to study cattle genetics for the last 30 years. What made you believe that that was important? And when you look back at this, how has it benefited the cattle industry, specifically your Black Angus?
Well, I presume she's referring to production records, which is not a hard term to understand. I was first introduced to production records back in 1956 by a gentleman I respect very much, Henry P. Holzman, and he mentored me and piqued my interest in keeping records, which is just merely a way of comparing one animal to another animal under like circumstances. I've been intrigued for these many years by the outcome of those trials. More recently, my mentor has been Dr. Robbie Pritchard, and together we have studied these records, come up with some conclusions that I think have benefited the cattle industry of South Dakota and the industry as a whole. As I will say in my speech tonight, I'm proud to have been part of that. And I'm proud to be a cattleman from South Dakota.
Absolutely. We're proud of you too. Thank you, Hugh. Keith Thompson. Keith, it's so good to have you here representing our friend Jeff Hazard. Keith is a principal partner at Coke Hazard, and I understand you began as an intern at Coke Hazard and then later joined the firm full-time in 2006. Jeff was your mentor. He was your colleague and friend up to his passing in 2019. The South Dakota Hall of Fame is all about recognizing those who have championed a culture of excellence. And it's evidence from Jeff and Coke Hazard's architectural work that he truly believed in and championed a culture of excellence. Can you describe Jeff's leadership style and how he helped to build such an outstanding team who have created some of South Dakota's most treasured buildings? And then if you could just throw in a little bonus, what was his favorite project?
Well, honored to be here for Jeff. Did work with him for about 20 years, and in that time, I would say nobody would accuse him of like oversharing or really over explaining things. He had a quiet leadership and really led by example. He was always very thoughtful, and so when he spoke, it was always well-reasoned and really almost impossible to argue with, because he'd kind of thought it through from all angles. So I guess that's probably what I learned the most from him is that putting in the time to carefully consider every decision, every choice, and fully work out what the impacts would be of our work. So, and then favorite project, we actually just talked about this at the table. Every project was sort of a child of his, so hard to pick one. So in my view, I think the pavilion, the Washington Pavilion in Sioux Falls, is probably one of the ones that stands out, that really has a lasting impact.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. We all miss him. Why don't you just pass it right there? Next to our Kentucky woman, Peggy Miller. Peggy Miller is a Kentucky woman who turned South Dakotan but kept that lovely Southern accent.
Thank you.
It must be wonderful to see the phenomenal successes of SDSU, many of which began under your leadership. The other day when the news announced that the football players from SDSU who were being recruited into the NFL, I thought of you, because that was one tough decision to go D1. So I think what everybody wants to know is, did you have some sleepless nights, and did you have any doubts when you were making that decision that ended up being amazing for the state of South Dakota? Peggy.
May I stand up because I can't see anybody around the podium?
Absolutely. Come on up.
Thank you. Well,
You want to use mine?
Either way, this blocks half the building, and I couldn't see you, and I would prefer to. Thank you very much. I'm not quite sure what the question is, but the answer is I never doubted. I had been a president at a bigger university and at other universities, and when I recognized the talent and the integrity and the ethics of the students that came to South Dakota State, from good parents like you and good citizens like you, I knew we had the right stuff. So after a little while, we got going. Now, not everybody thought I was so smart. I mean, several people tried to discourage me in really hard ways, but I was just doing my job. My job was to get every opportunity that was possible that they could succeed at for every student that was under our care. And I did my best every day to do that. And I'm so proud of what they have done. And now bringing back 2 national championships to our state and taking half the state to Texas to cheer them on. It's been a wonderful experience. But there was more to say about how it was there. The ethics that they had learned at home and at the university from the faculty, from the coaches, had blessed them and me in a great way because they were ready to assume responsibility. They were ready to show what talents they had, and they were ready to work, and we wanted them to win. They did it. So hooray for them. And thank you for this honor today. And I want you to cheer them on because nobody's got 3 national championships. Somebody's got to do it.
I think that requires a Go Jacks, right? Go Jacks. Thank you so much, Peggy. To bring it on home, Judge Judy Meyer-Henry. I have the pleasure of being in the same book club as Judy, and we like to say what goes on at the book club stays at the book club. Ladies, you know why. She's got a whole table full back here. Judy, you've blazed many trails, many in public service, with perhaps the most noteworthy being chosen as the first woman Supreme Court Justice. You were a teacher on the reservation. You were a cabinet secretary twice at the age of 36 under Bill Janklow. And I understand there's a special relationship there. And an executive at Citibank. During your diverse career, can you share the toughest job you ever had and why that was the case and what you learned from it, which laid the groundwork for your success? You got it? Tough job.
I think so. I hadn't thought about what is the toughest job. I think every job you have, it looks tough when you start out. I think probably going on the bench was probably the toughest job because as a lawyer, you really don't know what it looks like from the other side of the bench. And so when you put on that black robe, you have to assume all kinds of responsibilities that you didn't have to when you were an advocate on the other side. And so you put on that black robe and you have to be fair and impartial. And you have to know the law. You have to have an empathy for the litigants that are in front of you. And you have to like the lawyers that are in front of you, which all of those things, because of my past experiences, I think helped me do that. My teaching experience helped with knowing students and developing that empathy, and my passion is literature, as you know, being in the book club with me. And so you learn a lot about people and how they react, and you understand the understanding of why they've done some things. And when they show up in front of you and when you're on the bench, they're not always at their best, and they are not happy probably to be there, except when you do adoptions, and then they are. And those are wonderful. Every judge loves to do those. But you have to, I think, take all those things into consideration and then have the confidence that you can make a decision, and that it may not satisfy everybody, but you have to make the decision and try to explain to them why you've made the decision. And I think that was probably the toughest.
The toughest.
But it was also the most rewarding.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Judge. Let's thank the class of 2024 again for sharing their wisdom and life lessons. Congratulations on being inducted into the South Dakota Hall of Fame. Immediately following this, the inductees will be out in the hall. Please go and visit them and look at their beautiful tables, a meet and greet. And then from 1 to 3 o'clock, we'll be celebrating both current and former inductees in the suite of rooms down the hallway here at Cedar Shore Resort at the anniversary reunion, where we have about 50 folks coming that have been inducted in the past. And a special honoring song has been written and will be performed by inductee Brian Akipa. So you don't want to miss that. Then we're back here in the lobby at 4 o'clock for the social hour, and at 5:30, our banquet begins, first with a live charity auction over salad and wine, featuring our auctioneer, Mr. David Gnurk. Thank you, everybody. We hope you enjoyed our program today.